Thank you for inviting me. And if I may, I think you should support this type of series of lectures because in TU Vienna, we're desperately trying to have something similar and not managing so far. So I think it's good to have a moment of opening of the school towards the outside. And I think it's nice that it happens all together. It's kind of a little celebration in itself. So I was asked to talk about books and buildings, and so I thought, okay, maybe I can talk about books and buildings, which are things that we are doing with no specific attempt at coordinating the two activities. So books are something we do, and buildings are also something we do. There's no direct link in between the two, although of course there are some overlappings, and books are to a certain extent also, at least in our case, precondition to do architecture. So in I believe in 2000, I don't even remember when we published this thing, I don't know, in 2012 maybe. We published this book, this collection of two essays, one dedicated to the work of the Italian architect Giorgio Grassi, and one dedicated to the architecture of the city. So the first book by Aldo Rossi. And these two books, these two texts somehow came together, and this is really contrary to all of the rest that I will show you, which has been written by myself alone. This has really been written with my colleagues in the office, which also means that it's a bit more tormented and how to say, slow, and probably also less easy to read. But this was really important for us to put together to discuss actually the way we produce architecture. And on this level, I would say the Giorgio Grassi essay, which is the most boring and the most difficult to read, is actually the most important. And I think it's so boring and so difficult exactly because it's the important thing. And once that has been sort of defined, the rest can also be a little bit more enjoyable and easy. And the reason why we discuss the work of Giorgio Grassi, who is not necessarily a super famous Italian architect of the 70s, who's nowadays still alive, is that Grassi, of all these architects grouped around Rossi, has been the most radical in defining a way of approaching the architecture of the past as a sort of resource that could be reused to produce contemporary architecture. And Grassi didn't have the sort of second phase of the career that as it happened in the case of Rossi, in which Rossi became famous and started to design coffee pot and these sort of things. Grassi remained very, very dry and very, very abstract, and exactly because of that, he developed a very consistent and, in our opinion, useful intellectual position that we thought could be, to a certain extent, re-employed in a rather pragmatic way. So this is a bit that what we're doing, and together with that, we were doing this sort of things like a housing block, housing. You can call it tower if your expectation from tower are very limited. In Tirana, in Albania, or these exhibition design that is actually a bit later for Auserenweert for Freeze London, or these competitions for church in Norway or pavilion, Italian Expo pavilion at Shanghai Expo. And we were doing researches and also producing objects like this Foucault's pendulum, which is at Palazzo della Ragione in Padua. And the Foucault pendulum is it's a machine, it's a scientific machinery that demonstrates something that I don't know about the oscillation of whatever axis of the planet. But the problem is that if this pendulum is touched by someone, whatever it demonstrates, it doesn't demonstrate anymore. So you need to protect the pendulum from visitors, and in particular kids. And so we designed this very big sort of pan. It's a very simple, autonomous figure who could be readable and survive inside of a extremely exuberant artistic, like inside of a masterpiece like Palazzo della Ragione. And probably you see here an attitude toward form, like in trying to read a form out of the context and to put it there as clear and as autonomous as possible, but also as simple as possible. That probably you will see again reappearing in other circumstances, well, other stuff we were doing more or less at the time. And then at a certain moment we won competition for an archive in Milan, an archive dedicated to 5 different and very different associations linked to Italian, Milanese and Italian post-war history. So these, and among these associations, the most important thing is that one of the 5 associations is the Association of Former Partisan Fighters in World War II, who, for a very complicated series of reasons that I cannot explain now, decided not to give up their archives to the Italian state because they didn't trust the Italian state. So they still have very precious letters in between very important political figures in Italian history, like Longo or Nenne and so forth. So this is a collection that should go inside the building, and it's a collection that is very precious, but at the same time very unspectacular, because basically it's pieces of paper with written documents. So what we imagined to do in this case was to really build the archive as a document of collective memory and as an object that could resist. Here I have only pictures of the model in front of the cathedral at 4:30 in the morning. That's the one and only moment in which the square looks like this. So we tried really to build a monument, and once again, very simple thing, made of bricks, with these pictures that are made with sort of pixels in 6 tones of brick. And then after that, we probably jumped to a little bit more complex and also bigger type of architecture problems, and well, very simply, we were invited to a slightly bigger competition. Like in this case, it's a competition for this area called Scalofarini, which is the biggest redevelopment area in Milan. Scalofarini was part of a system of interchange and logistic platforms around the city, connected to the central rail station, and with different figures. They are now useless, and so they will be redeveloped. There are several, and but Farini is the biggest, and Farini is. Does this thing work? No, of course. No, yes, it works. Amazing. So this is the main. So this is the plan, the so-called Beruto plan, that is the expansion of Milan at the end of the 19th century, when Milan started to be part of the unitarian Italian state. So you see still the old station. That was a station which you can cross. Now the station is here, and it's just a kind of a station, a terminal station. And these are the other places that were then later used for the railway. You see the railway that's going all around the city. And this is Scalofarini. And Scalofarini is separated from the center and looks very remote from the rest of the city. Not only because of the railway, but because in between the so-called city center and the place is this gigantic cemetery. Cemetery that you see here. So this is the cemetery, and this is Scalofarini. And this is the facade of the cemetery. So that stands in front of the city center, really like the beginning of the end, like the beginning of the city of the dead. And behind that, there's nothing. In reality, the cemetery is quite an interesting urban feature, because it's now more than 150 years old. So there's big trees, and it's actually sort of a park that could be used in many different ways. And what is interesting is that while Scalofarini that you see here is completely, is completely shapeless, the cemetery is cut by the railway, so it's incomplete, but somehow has sort of a figure. So by combining the two, it would be possible to have a much bigger park, performing also better in environmental terms, in trying to reduce the heat that in Milan in summer is really horrible. And providing a sort of logic at the scale of the entire city. So we thought that it was possible to design the new park as a complementary part of the cemetery, and to produce one very large urban figure, a little bit like these famous neoclassical urban figure of Milan, and something that could find a position in this system of objects like Parco Sempione, Porta Venezia, this new park, and park around the San Siro Stadium, that is this thing here, and so have a little bit this scale and recognizability of other elements of the neoclassical city. And because of the size of this massive tree, it contributes reducing probably half grade temperature in summer, which is probably even too much as an estimate, because it's very difficult to reduce 1 degree, but at least it could contribute. This is and around that, all of the built, the massive amount of built matter that was necessary for the competition was organized. So you see these towers next to these elements, but I don't think it's necessary to discuss this in detail. These are photos by Stefano Graziani, who's an Italian photographer we normally work with. This is a model for this competition, and photos are taken at the Archivio Storico, Archivio di Stato in Milan. That's another thing that we often do. And this is a little bit the park in the system of other parks and the relation to infrastructure in Milan. And the system was connected by this path here. So this is the facade of the cemetery, and it's possible to go up to a terrace on top of the border, up to there, and there it was possible to add a bridge and cross to the other side, which meant simply reusing these terrace already existing and very large and very beautiful, because you're walking in between the tree, how you call that, the part with the leaves of the tree, not the trunk, the other thing. So, and this is a bit how this thing would look like. And you see, once again, it's quite a simple gesture that tries to reconfigure things, and then there are the massive towers here, very big blocks there, and a headquarter of the region there, some other housing there. So we lost the competition to OMA, which is not funny. I don't understand why you think it's funny. And this is a bit the thing. Other thing we did is this pavilion for brewery, Italian old Italian brewery that was bought by Carlsberg some 10 years ago, and then underwent a process of rebranding, and through the rebranding they decided they need a little bit of a entry pavilion that could look a little bit better. And the entry pavilion looks like this. Once again, the form is very simple. It's also very rough. It's made to survive in this quite tough industrial landscape. There are these large tanks for cleaning and the leftover, the debris of the process of beer making. So this thing is also smelling. And so the building is at the same time very simple, but also to a certain extent mysterious, at least in this picture. And it's this cylinder with a cone on the top that is simply chopped in the middle, and in the middle there's this chimney of covered with tiles with the logo of the company, and inside is this. The building is entirely built in wood, and it has one of those very high sustainability standards, which I should remember, but I don't remember. Whatever, LEED 0 or -1 or -2, whatever. And And it's a little bit inspired of all the different things by this extremely beautiful antique casino by Schinkel with this chimney with the deer antlers in the middle. And through doing these, at a certain moment, I published this book on Bramante. This book I've been writing for a lot of time. It's something that I consider quite serious. Like I spent really 15 years accumulating stuff to do these, and then at a certain moment in 2014, it was the anniversary of the death of Bramante, who died in 1514. And for that, with San Rocco, the magazine that Miroslav mentioned before, we did a so-called Bramante tour. So we took a bus and with some people went to see the entire production of Bramante. And after that, I happened to go and teach for a semester in Chicago. And there I thought, okay, I can conclude this entire pile of stuff that I have on this person and come out with something. And so I wrote this book, which was published in 2021, I think. So it took still 6 years. And at that moment, it was really writing, like not, I mean, I was still reading, but it was no more just the fancying a little bit about the possibility to write, but it was really kind of more systematic. And these are a bit my manuscripts, if you want to call it like that. Like, I'm not able to correct really on a computer, so I would write and then print and then correct by hand. And I'm I would say I'm a pretty bad writer, but I'm a relatively good editor. So I'm good at erasing things. And I also enjoy it much more than writing. Like the very painful part of the story for me is when I have to produce, but when I can destroy, it's much more interesting. So this looks a bit like this, and this was always the paper I had with me. So I was always printing just one side in order to write correction on the other side. So that was the bunch of white paper I had with me to draw also things about the work of the office, so projects and so forth. So you will see some of them. And the book is a book on architecture, on an architect by another architect. So it's so heavily structured. So there's very much an issue of what goes before, what goes after, section, numbering, this is first, this is second. And this was done with very obsessive system of numbering, for instance, used by Wittgenstein in writing Tractatus, so 1, and then the comment to 1 is 1.1, the comment to 1.1 is 1.1.1, but if there's a second comment, it's 1.1.1.2, and blah, blah, blah. So this was entirely written like that, and then at a certain moment I thought, no, come on, it's too much. It's not a treaty, it's ridiculous, it makes the thing unreadable, so I canceled it, and I think it's much better. So again, so these, for instance, are sketches for an apartment that I think is in the presentation after. So these are sketches for the master plan that you saw before for Scarfari. well, this is family life violently intruding into science. Well, I have a lot of these, but of course they are a bit useless. Blah, blah, blah. So these, for instance, are the colors for a model for a project in Fribourg. So this is a list of RAL codes. That's very pragmatic, and this is the book with very beautiful photos by Bas Prinsen, who's a friend with whom I often collaborate. So this is the final thing. The book looks like this. If you want to buy, you go to this thing called, that I really do not endorse, but nevertheless called Amazon, and you buy it. So there's two types of pictures, so black and white repertoire pictures, like for instance this one, very beautiful by by Portoghese, where you can see that the tempietto is perfectly aligned with this palm tree, for whatever reason, and generates very strange effect. Or this picture by Stanislav Mons. And this, and so there's picture by Bas at the beginning and at the end. In all of this period, we have been working quite a lot in Tirana. We've been involved by at the time, mayor, some 15 years ago. We did a couple of buildings, like the one you saw at the beginning, and this is a proposal for a competition for the new city hall. Tirana, the urban structure of Tirana is incredibly simple. There's the only trace of urban organization that existed still in the 90s is this boulevard, designed by the Italian architect Armando Brasini when Albania was occupied by Italy during fascism, and the city was very, very small. Like in the early, like at the end of the 80s, the city was still something like 30,000 inhabitants. Like it's very, very small city. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe 100,000 or 200,000. But anyhow, not a big city. And nowadays it's a city of 1 million and a half, which is half the population of Albania. Half of the population of Albania lives in Tirana. Still, the main urban structure is this, and the structure goes from this building that is the Polytechnic University to Skanderbeg Square, that is the square where you have the Opera House, the municipality, the National Museum, and so forth. And in between here, there's a pyramid, this building here, now devastated by the refurbishment of MVRVD, but somehow a strange mixture of Niemeyer and sort of post-Stalinist monumentality. Interesting thing in itself, and that is the National Museum. National Museum is here. The pyramid is here. This is the Skanderbeg Square. It was been redesigned very recently by the Belgian office 51 and 4E. Very, very beautiful. One of the most convincing contemporary project in Europe, in my opinion. Like these very gently sloping pyramid as well, with this large rectangular base, which is, I think, excellent, with the only problem that there's no shadow at all. So in the summer, it's impossible to be there. So what we thought is, in designing the new city hall, we would like to produce something that is not at all in competition with Skanderberg Square, and it's providing shadow and producing this a completely different, calm, under shadow environment. So the offices are in a very simple cube. The meeting, the assembly, the other meeting area are underground, and the entire surface of the plot is covered by a pergola. And this is the plan. This thing we did with Johnson Mark Lee from Los Angeles, and with Yellow Office, who's a landscape architecture office from Milan. And this is a bit how the pergola plus cube of offices would look like. This is a plan of the underground, plan of the offices. And you see the alternative in between Skanderberg Square and the new shadow area. And these are pictures from the street and at night. Nobody won this competition because actually at the end the city discovered that they didn't own the plot, which was owned by the Ministry of Economy or the Ministry of whatever, and the ministry didn't want to give it to the city, so nothing happened. This was just before COVID. This was a study this was a study done in collaboration with many other agencies like Stefano Boeri, Architetti, and Michel Devigne, landscape architect. This is a study of Geneva. The Fondation Braillard, which is a foundation in Geneva, wanted to imagine the so-called ecological transition. So how Geneva and the French territory next to Geneva, because Geneva is exactly at the border of Switzerland, and all of the outskirts are still related, like people who live in the outskirts work in Geneva, but they actually live in France. So this entire metropolitan area wanted to know how it could develop in a way that was sustainable. And this was pre-COVID, so it was still, and Switzerland is actually a growing country, so all of different cities are growing, so the numbers were still pretty, in a way, optimistic about the growth, and at the same time scary, because a lot of growth means a lot of pollution, a lot of problems. This research was developed by 6, if I remember correctly, different teams in parallel, so it was no competition. It was something that in French is called mandat d'études parallèles, so the parallel studies. And the other teams were, I don't know, Paola Vigano, Armando, blah, blah, blah. And we decided to focus our attention on very large multinational institutions that have their headquarters in Geneva, namely the United Nations and the CERN. And we studied a bit the two cases, and then at a certain moment we discovered that CERN, and the picture you're seeing here are by Armin Linke, and they're picture of CERN on one side and picture of the Salève, which is a mountain next to Geneva on the right. And what we discovered is that, like at the moment, CERN is this thing here. So it uses this underground tunnel where there's this machine called the synchrotron, which accelerates particles of matter in order to produce collisions in between them. So this thing is called the LHC, the Large Hadron Collider. And this is, I believe, 8 meters in diameter. But the CERN is planning, although nobody knows if they would ever do, is planning a gigantic new ring that would be 100 kilometers in circumference, go across under the lake, and allow them to make much more complicated experiments, which, once again, I don't know what they are. What was interesting for us, like, first of all, when this thing was done in a complete indifference of the city towards the underground tunnel and of the underground tunnel towards the city. So the underground tunnel you absolutely don't notice, because I don't know if I have a picture here. No. But the exits, for instance, are completely unremarkable and normally very ugly utilitarian buildings of the kind you would find in whatever industrial suburbs. And our suggestion was, if you're digging this thing, maybe this thing could be somehow related to the city, in the sense that this thing the CERN consumes as much energy as the entire city of Geneva. So the CERN cannot produce energy for the city. It actually consumes, and it consumes as much. And this energy, in a very typical French rest of the world deal, is entirely nuclear energy produced in France. So CERN is populated by a population of incredibly dedicated people who are really, really nerds. Like you cannot beat them at being nerds, and they love what they're doing. They always want to talk to you about collision of particles and how you build up this machine, which is, by the way, a machine that exists only there. So this machine, they are not buying components. They are producing everything. They are the mechanics. Like the people who work there, they're not so much scientists who make hypotheses, because these scientists, they can be in US or China or wherever and send the mathematical hypothesis and then test it. But the people actually working for CERN are mechanics, like Formula One mechanics, who are running this crazy machine, and they are the only one who can do it, because there's no other one in the world. And they are so enthusiastic about it, but they're also incredibly defensive. So the moment you start to ask them, I don't know, where do you buy the energy to run these things? Start to say, what do you imply? Do you imply that we are not sustainable? Which, by the way, is absolutely true. CERN is absolutely not sustainable. At the same time, I think we all agree that probably it's interesting to investigate quantum physics. Again. So, what we imagine, and not understanding anything, is that this thing is anyhow, in the end, a gigantic underground tunnel. And this underground tunnel can be used to, if not produce, at least distribute energy. So you can imagine that the places where this underground tunnel overlaps with infrastructure on the surface, there could be the new centers of expansion of this city that is expected to grow so much in the next years. so the CERN, the new thing, becomes again the form of the new city. Of course, it's a form that you will never read, will never see, because the circle is completely underground and it doesn't manifest its geometry. But what is interesting is that these completely technical suggestions, for some reason, maybe for geological reasons, but I don't know, completely matches the reality of the landscape, because it singles out the presence of the salève in the middle. And this produces this strange condition of this circle that is strangely, and we don't know why actually, responsive to the landscape on top. And so implicitly it suggests a potential urban figure. An urban figure for a city that, of course, is more complex. It not only involves Geneva and Lake Geneva, but it also involves, start to be so big to involve also Annecy and Lake Annecy. So these are a bit of exploration of this thing that are not so important. We try to describe the final situation by making this 360-degree panorama of the city and the metropolitan area as from the top of the Salève, in which you can see all of it. So you see Geneva with the jet d'eau, you see, oh, sorry. So this is the underground new synchrotron, of course. This is the old one. This is the airport. This is Geneva with jet d'eau. This is the I don't remember the name of that mountains. And these are the Alps. And this is the tip of the Salève with the telepheric. And this is already France, so it's old France. So it's probably this is the Mont Blanc. And here at a certain moment, you will see Lake Annecy and Lake Annecy. So you see, of course, in this representation, the new particle collider is aligned. So this Lake Annecy over there. And so this is the last tip of the Salève. Something completely different is, well, what we were interested in, these are actually these things, like these tools. And this is an apartment for a very rich Swiss client in Milan. It's a restoration. And this used to be a factory, like a small urban textile factory. And so a very big hall that then became the studio of a painter. And then we tried with our project to preserve as much as possible this openness. And so there's these two bands with the toilets and kitchen, blah, blah, blah. And here, toilets and sleeping room with these wardrobe, that is here wardrobe, here corridor that gives access to the room. So this is a model of the thing, and this is the thing. So you see behind there, this is the corridor, and this is the wardrobe accessible from the corridor, and the sleeping rooms are in the other side. So this is done with these tiles that are man-made, like craftsmen in Sicily produced them, because we didn't want to have this sort of super studio effect, because I'm not so fond of super studio. But nevertheless, we some like this is a case of a completely gridded set of objects which, in a way, might also refer to superstudio condition. The white tiles are made to match the size of the existing tiles of the pavement. And this is another project for Tirana. This for the forensic police. Our, let's say, our project opportunities, our commissions in Albania are always a bit strange. And this is probably the strangest. I mean, what at least what they told us was that the UK government was available to pay for this building, provided the building would be copied from a forensic police building, scientific police building in Belfast. So at a certain moment, I went to Belfast with some representatives of the Ministry of Interior of Albania and several policemen to see this building that they were supposed to copy. And we say, okay, it's fine, we copy it. The problem was that for security, like, two things were interesting. The first interesting thing was that the building was new because it had been blown up by IRA not too many years ago. That's why they had to rebuild. And the second was that they could, for security reasons, they could not give us plans. So we should copy, but so we went there. We saw this building that I'm not even allowed to show you, I think. And this building had stairs at the two sides, and we thought, okay, building with a stair to the side. These are the unbelievably aggressive renderings done by our local partners, which in a way we also like. And this is the building, so you see the stairs. So the stairs are at the oh no. Stairs are there, and there's two entrances. There's a corridor in the middle. The certain depth of these rooms, and so that's the building. Once again, extremely simple, extremely realistic with respect to the conditions that were given to us. Like one thing that I guess a lot of other architects would not like to do this sort of thing, because it's borderline offensive for your profession. I mean, you need to do the police, and you should copy from that building. We think it's an interesting condition to experiment, but I'm not sure everybody would like to do it. And this is the other building we designed. This we had to design like in 3 months for the police. Both of these projects are now stalled. Who knows what's going to happen? But this is a very big building that is the headquarters of the Albanian police. And what I think is really nice is that the building is on top of this existing building that should be demolished, and in front of it there's all this area that is empty, where I think every police in the world would have told, build the building there in the large lawn. But in Tirana you have very strange conditions, but you also have a lot of freedom in a way. So when we say, okay, let's not waste permeable soil again, let's build where you already at the buildings, they say, okay. And that generated this, I believe, amazing architectural effect that you have this colossal portico, but given that the loan is higher, when you go then down, the portico looks like an Egyptian temple, like already a ruin that has been filled up to 5 meters with sand of the desert, which I think is very nice. So this is the details of how to do it. I don't know what it's a crazily thick building that tries to at least enact a little bit of save on energy by virtue of this incredible mass. The technological component, as you can imagine, is very low, but we nevertheless try to do buildings that are environmentally as sustainable as possible given the conditions. So we always go back to building very fattish things that at least do not disperse energy. And this is, on the contrary, a very technological, complicated, and hyper-designed building that is a library, Milan. It's a competition we won last year, and that they are starting to build. We started digging this week. This is a series of references that I skipped. This is also a set of sketches that are not so important. These are important, the proportioning of the facade. So this is the building. The building is made, it's a very simple thing in a way. So it's 2 naves plus a volume that is the auditorium. The 2 naves are the 2 components of the library, the more open part and the part of the department that is more like a traditional library. This library is the so-called European Library, Milan, and it's of course complements a rather articulated set of libraries like the existing one, the Sormani Library, which is in a 17th century old building, and so forth. So this is a library that is much more open to, let's say, new media, where it's also possible to work and fabricate code software, use a Fab Lab, or rent spaces for podcasting and things like that. So it's not really the library where you only have the books. And the northern part of the northern nave is this more experimental part of the library, and the southern one is more traditional, if we can say. And the 2 are connected by this platform that you see here, that you reach through 2 very big escalator, and then there's the other escalator for the more public part of the library on this side. In section, you enter. No, actually, you enter here. This is the escalator. This is this suspended platform I told you. These are the more public and, let's say, technologically related part of the building. And this is the more traditional department, library, plus a special room on the top here. So the program is very complex. The books are here in a completely automated, gigantic box made of little box that can move along a given structure. And they, like when you need a certain box, so you're searching a book, the book is inside of a box, the box moves up the column, and then like wheels, it moves on top of the surface of the of the deposit and gets to the point where a person picks the book and put it into the vertical circulation of the books. These plane with these little robots running is visible through a few round holes in the pavement. This is the library from the park to the west. Yes. This is from the new park that we are designing again together with Yellow Office to the north. Not a park, like a square, also because there's the railway under it, so you cannot really have a park there. And this is the back with the entrance here, the entrance to the auditorium. And here you see this large full-height space, which is not conditioned. So the system of grids that are screening and wrapping the entire building are determining a condition that it's not too cold, like the solar radiation in winter. This side is towards south, so the solar radiation in winter eats this part that is not conditioned. And in summer, the air circulation allows not to reach too high temperature. This thing is done through very simple set of screens, which are not moving, like they're grids. They're metal grids outside the glass facade. So you see the facade has this double level. And this part of the building, these here and these, the entrance double-eyed floor, is not conditioned. This part where you see these glass here and this is conditioned, this is conditioned. And they, given that they are conditioned, they heat or cool the in-between part in the different seasons. So they contribute to heating or cooling the great atrium. This, of course, the technology to do it is not so complicated. So you see here a little bit these screens. So these screens are just grids, metal grids that are painted in a certain color and stay there. But the calculation of the thickness of this grid that changes, but does not change visibly on the different facade, allows to generate this indoor condition that allows to have, let's say, almost 1/3 of the building unconditioned. This is a bit the bridge, so you see the escalators here. These are the departments. This is this bridging element. This is a bookshop. This is a cafe. And these are the other departments. And you see all this area, including the top over there, is not conditioned. Here you see the round hole that shows you the little machines getting the books underground. And of course, this is a completely different condition. So this is a building that's 30,000 square meters, cost 100 million, more or less, a bit more. And is a condition for experimenting that is totally different from, I don't know, Tirana. But it's not better and it's not worse and does not necessarily produce better architecture. It's just different condition, a different challenge. And I think it's possible also to somehow crossbreed the two experiences, to learn something in places where you have to work with much less resources and much less technology, and bring it back to Western Europe, and at the same time you can expect, exactly because you have so much more money in other contexts, you can experiment something that then can also have consequences in other places. This is the book that, how are we? Should I stop? Yeah? Okay, again, this is a completely unrelated thing, but maybe related. This is the book I made with my collaborators in Vienna this year. I think it has been presented in June. And this is the result of my lessons in Vienna. I was hired by the TU in 2021, I think. And they asked me, no, they didn't ask me. I have to, that's my job. I have to do the so-called first episode of a thing that's called, now it's called Grundlagen des Entwerfens, but used to be called the Grundkurs. So the Grundkurs is a course for the students of the first semester of the first year, in which you roughly have to give them an idea what is architecture about. Like my chair in Vienna used to be the chair of an architect called Anders Spalfi, but before Anders Spalfi, it was the chair of Rob Krier. So I investigated a bit what Rob Krier did, and I think to a certain extent this class, this type of lectures are part, like the relics of a project of indoctrination of Rob Krier. So I bought a bit these Krier books, and the Krier books, the Rob Krier books, the Leon Krier books are different, but the Rob Krier books have this feature that is like the next book always incorporates the previous one. So it's always the same book that grows in time until it's a book about literally everything. How to design walls, how to design windows, how to design houses, how to design public buildings, how to design cities, how to design public spaces, and so forth. And everything is covered with this very meticulous and elegant drawing, and I thought I could really not do that. And I was also a little bit resistant to the topic, because I just finished writing this book on Bramante, which is a book that doesn't take a direct line to what is architecture. It takes a kind of a detour and doesn't want to take position on literally every single problem, and most than anything doesn't want to give a recipe, like, you know, guys, you should do it like that. I don't know. So again, here I was confronted with the possibility to say, so the Grundkurs, so what is, in very simple terms, architecture, what in very simple terms you should do. So I tried not to do that, and I organized the lectures in this way, like kind of dialectic couples, like this one is called Roof and Wall. And this is the lecture. I will not give you the lecture, but it's always made of two pictures, and each picture belongs to the category, and they are always sort of in a relation. And it's always 50 slides. It's PowerPoint. And while doing this PowerPoint, this was my first set of lectures in the new school. So I thought, okay, maybe I do it carefully. So I started sketching this thing, like sketching the PowerPoint, like not really sketching this building, but literally sketching this image on a PowerPoint, and just took notes. And these are the notes. So you see, there's a bit of quotes, something I think I should tell the students. They're not particularly nice drawing. I mean, look at this penguin. Where's the penguin? Where's the penguin? Ah, there. That's horrible. Yeah, it's like this. I don't know what to add. It's been by far the easiest book I ever made. Once we had all this A4 paper, we scanned them. I wrote an introduction, and that's the book. And yeah, and I also didn't want to write in with a proper typeface the text, because that seemed to me like this thing are a bit silly and a bit of an oversimplification. So if they are handwritten and in a way it's not even entirely possible to read them, I think it's okay. So they should give an idea. I think they should provide the students with a perception of the problem. They should, I think, particularly the PowerPoint that they see, should provide with some visual material that they can start to use to build their own personal backgrounds, but it shouldn't be more like that. So this is it. And this is the last thing. This is what we are actually doing now. So we're doing a republication of Fischer von Erlach Entwurf einer historischen Architektur, which was published in 1721. So 2 years ago, it was the 300 years anniversary. So we did a symposium in Vienna, and now we are republishing the book. The cover and back cover. At the moment is not available unless you really want to buy the 19th century reprint that are this size. There's only a very small reprint published in Darmstadt in the late 70s. So we do it a little bit bigger so that you can read, and there's a translation, an English translation, because the original is in German and French. And these we hope to present just before Christmas in Vienna. But this is actually a republication. So, and together with that, at TU, we're doing this research on similar conditions, similar wonders, like buildings that you would not expect to exist, but which actually do exist in the contemporary world, like things like this is the Church of Saint Simon in the Mokattam Hills in Cairo for the Coptic minority, which is dig into the rock, and there's this beautiful or not beautiful bas reliefs that have been made in the 70s. So they're made with the sledgehammer, well, these are some. So this is the City of the Deaf in Najaf, I think it's Najaf, and this is Karbala, where the shrine of Imam Hussein is located, but has been almost entirely rebuilt in recent years. This is, for instance, the Batu Caves in Kuala Lumpur, and This is a stair going into a cave, into a rock, where all these Hindu temples are located. And this is there's a celebration called the Thaipusam that's celebrated by the Tamil minority in Malaysia, where I went last year. So we went last year, and you climb all the believers climb all these 272, I believe, steps with either a pot of milk on the shoulder, or with very, very bulky little, little temple made of wires and iron that they carry in an act of penitence. This is the reconstruction of St. Peter that is in Yamoussoukro in Côte d'Ivoire, that has been built in the 80s for at the time president of Côte d'Ivoire, Félix Houphouët-Boigny, if I'm not wrong. But anyhow, it doesn't really matter what these are. These sort of things exist. Like, we tend to think that these things are pre-modern, that has been completely disappeared from the world, but actually it's not true. There's a lot. I mean, these are just an example. And what we're doing is simply going there, documenting, redrawing, and assembling them. So this is a project that's called Wonders of the Modern World, which is the next book I will probably do. That's it. Thank you. Of course, if you have questions, I'm happy to try to answer.
So I will start with the first question, and thank you for your lecture. It was super interesting. I want to ask you just a basic one. Why did you choose Bramante actually for such a long research? So there should be a history about it.
Well, Bramante is pretty good architect, first of all. The second thing is Bramante, and this is something that for instance, Gay Müller, who's the most important historian of Bramante in the 19th century, writes, is that Bramante is more important than the other Italian Renaissance architects because he took the biggest risk. So Bramante, we don't know exactly how the thing went, but at a certain moment, Julius II decides to demolish St. Peter and rebuild. It was possible to restore St. Peter. And the question appeared already many times. And for instance, Don Battista Alberti says it's foolish not to restore it and not to be reasonable also with this church. And then somehow, all of a sudden, one day, Julius II let people dig the foundation of a new piece of the church. It goes down into this foundation. There are the reports of the people of the curia, the clerics, the high-ranking clerics, saying that he was going down into the mud and wanted someone else of the bishop to go down as well. And everybody said, oh. And that's the foundation of St. Peter. That's where they put down this coin by Caradosso, probably drawn by Bramante. And we don't really know who took the decision. If it was just Julius II, or if it was Bramante who pushed it. But anyhow, it's this crazy gamble, because immediately after, what we know is that Bramante smashes the old church without mercy. So in a way that it becomes immediately clear that there's no way back. And all of the people at the papal administration write that, but in kind of secret diaries, write, you know, this thing is not going well. This thing doesn't make sense. It's also a shift of power from the church being legitimized by all of the relics, all of the memory that were accumulated in the old St. Peter. It's even Vasari writes, yeah, Bramante could have been a bit more attentive to all the relics that were there. And this shift, which means shifting also from a church legitimated through historical documents, erudition, anyhow, power of certain type of professional, moves to being legitimated through architectural spectacle, which is what is really annoying for all these professionals. And they all, like the administration of the church, like the high ranking, like the deep state, if you want to call it like that, really dislike the idea. But somehow Bramante manages to demolish so much that you cannot go back. And then he died. Like, they both die. Like, Julius dies in 1430 and Bramante in 1414. And in 1513 and 1514. And then there's several generations of architects who have to solve the problem, to the point that Michelangelo, who becomes architect of St. Peter much later, in the 40s, if I'm not wrong, when he's 75, if I'm not wrong, takes this job as a way to reduce as much as possible the construction, in order to finish with this story who generate so many problems. Just to mention, 3 of the 95 theses by Martin Luther are dedicated to St. Peter. It's stupid to do this church for this reason. And then another one, it's stupid to do this church for this reason. And it's stupid to ask for so much money to poor Germans to build this stupid church. And this is not to say that the Protestant Reformation took place because Bramante demolished too much. No, the story is certainly more complex. But for sure, the construction of St. Peter has been the main propaganda topic of Protestant reformers. Like, by far, number one. And so Bramante takes a risk and takes a responsibility that places his own work in a slightly different terrain in which architecture really touches into power and touches into politics very heavily, and he takes risk that others would not have taken. Actually, all of the debate, except Bramante, like, not only the people after, but as I was saying, even the people before, like Alberti, say, no, no, no. This is too aggressive as an idea. This is somehow entering into a field that should not be the field of architecture. You cannot ask so much money just in order to prefigurate a possible form of, to represent a possible community life. Like, if you take architecture as such, as representation of a possible community. And you get to the problem of the representation of a possible community actually backfiring into the organization of the present. So that's why I think it's much more interesting than other architects who are much more nice in a way and much less problematic. It's the other thing is that Bramante left us 5 drawings or a bit more. So, and everything he did, he didn't manage to control entirely. So he never finished the building, something collapsed. He didn't got, like, there's very little things that are entirely designed. Maybe San Satiro in Milan and the Tempietto in Rome. So you are left with a lot of space for imagination. You can figure out the Bramante you prefer, which helps if you, in a way, want to write things through someone else. I think this is very explicit in the book, so it's not that I'm now revealing, oh, that's, no, it's very simply stated at the beginning. Yeah. Do you want?
Maybe just related to your very last slide with the cows and to the name of your office. I'm just curious, why is it called baukuh?
There's really no explanation. I guess it's like kind of a fake German. That's it. Kind of silly fake German.
Thanks for the lecture. I was wondering about the project with the cemetery in Milan you showed, and I'm sorry if you already said that and I didn't notice, but I was wondering if I understood well that the whole area around the railways are now like the railways brownfield.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering that there was a competition, and part of it you designed this High Line bridge or whatever it is, and the northern part or like the northern park, was that also part of the competition, or that was designed by someone else? And whether the new big buildings, the towers, whether they were already there, and the park and the connection to the other side was somehow planned like post like afterwards, or if it's the whole development planned somehow together, that, I don't know, someone is planning the towers and therefore someone also designed the park between the towers and the railways. So basically, what was the process and who were the stakeholders?
Stakeholders are the owners, and little more than the owners, because the city decided to have the competition organized by actually the owner of the area. So yes, the city was theoretically involved, but I think there were better ways of maintaining control of the public over this decision. Nevertheless, this is what you can do if you work nowadays. So this is the sort of competition you can do, and we do. The design is entirely ours, of the team. The team was complex. It was not only us. It was us. It was on site. It was another office in Milan. Chris Gantenbein, who was an office based in Basel, Atelier Campetil, who's an office based in Rotterdam. I'm probably forgetting some. Lola, landscape architect. Yes, no, we designed all of the thing. like I think it's clear. Like what's inside the green border is the competition area, and we designed this residential neighborhood, this other residential neighborhood, these towers, these offices, this other residential neighborhood, but then this bridge connecting the two sides and connecting with this existing platform on top of the cemetery. It's only a matter of hierarchy. The competition has to design a new park, and we thought this is the new park, this is the form, and then the development are connected to the different neighboring urban tissues. But again, we lost the competition probably exactly because of that, like because we concentrated on the public part of the thing and not so much on towers, which are there. Yeah, please.
I'd like to ask on the visuality of your proposal of this project, either from Milan or from Tirana. They were designed or drawn very specific styles. Could you tell us about the inspiration of how it matched?
Well, that's an interesting question. Of course, that has to do with two issues. One issue is the issue of an audience, and I would say our audience in Tirana is actually the Prime Minister directly. So it's a type of relation that's really like Renaissance. You go to the prince and you show your drawing. And if you like, it's okay. Otherwise, not. In Milan, it's of course a commission of many people. Some are experts, some are not. And it's also an issue of money. Like in Tirana, we get very, very low payment for this project. So it would be, I mean, we would not have the resources, for instance, to simply hire rendering people to do renderings for that. So again, this belongs to these different conditions of the different architectural opportunities. But it's also true that we, for instance, in this case, we decided to keep our renderings as abstract as possible. And we invested a lot of effort and energy and also a bit of money in doing this model, which maybe was wrong decision in terms of communication. So there's no real recipe from our side, but the decision on representations are not so different from the decision about the architecture. So they are context specific every time, and I would say we actually speak a lot about how to represent the project. We maybe speak even more about how to represent the project in the office than about the project itself. This may be an Italian disease, but no. I want to see if there was. Yeah, here you see, like, for instance, in these cases, there's two competitions, one in Berlin and one in Geneva. In this case, we built entire models, like really big, particularly the one in Geneva is very big and very detailed, just to take a picture and then miserably lose the competition. And then it also depends also on our personal life. We are doing these a bit less now because we are more old and more bored by what we're doing. So you need a lot of enthusiasm to make a gigantic model just to take a picture. And at a certain moment, that enthusiasm disappears, which is not only bad, also that, because you gain some awareness of context. Like, for instance, 15 years ago, I would never accepted to do renderings for competition. Now we do. You can do good renderings. In the meantime, people doing renderings became also much better. And actually, 2023 renderings are much more convincing than 2008 renderings. So, and it also became super professional. So you don't do yourself, you give it to someone else to do it, and all of a sudden I think it's interesting. While in 2010, I would absolutely refuse the idea of doing renderings. Yeah.
Maybe I have one question on the Bramante.
Mm-hmm.
Why Bramante today? What is from Bramante valid to be today? Is it the space? The book is quite a lot dedicated to space.
Yeah.
In the space, is it some pragmatism?
Also a lot of the pragmatism, the capacity to never claim, okay, this has already been done, let's adjust it. Yeah. No, I have an interest for Bramante also because of that. There's extreme pragmatism, the fact that there's no signature. I think if we would have no written documents telling us so clearly that the architect who designed Santa Maria in San Satiro in Milan in 1480s is the same architect who designed San Pietro in Montorio in Rome in the 1505s. Most likely we would think they are two different architects, which I think is really nice compared to the post-romantic idea of the artist as this kind of genius who looks into his art and discovers and creates in this extreme authenticity. I like a lot the fact there's zero authenticity in Bramante, and it can look like something in a certain place and look completely different in another place. But the intelligence that is operating is always extremely sophisticated and extremely curious and open-ended, and also, I think, extremely witty, maybe a bit cynical, but certainly with a lot of sense of humor. So yeah, that's another reason. Like the interest in space, the pragmatism, the capacity of doing with what was available, and the complete lack of authorship in a way. This, I think, is something that is obvious from my position, because I work in an office, like I'm a partner in an office with other people, so we have to do a little bit without authorship to a certain extent.
Thank you a lot for the lecture.
Thank you for your lecture. be collective from Berlin Floating University, so I will be happy if you come again also to next week, same time. Thank you.